how this all started. When I started doing HAARP, when I helped put up the towers at the Tacoma, it was put up with the idea we were doing it for an oil company. We were putting it up there for what they called tomography. And we came back a year later, and it was occupied by the Navy and the Air Force. And we finished doing a tune-up on it and putting in all the transmitting antenna wires, interlinking wires and everything for the antennas. After that, it became a test subject occupied by the Air Force and the Navy. And that's when I started seeing things happen going wrong. Understand, it was devised to be a tomography instrument, and it got taken over by the military. And it basically worked as just like they do tomography today. They bring the earth, the ground with explosives now, and they look for a resounding of what reflects back from those soundings. The same thing goes with radio signals. They introduce a radio signal into the ground, and it shakes the ground, and they get a return off the reflections, and they can tell what was underneath there. What they found out was it started interfering with the ionosphere. And when they found that out, it became an experiment. And it's been an experiment for a multitude of weaponry ever since. It is endless, the capabilities of what HAARP is. It is an experiment in the process. It is endless, I say endless, what HAARP can do. The understanding is just a minute fix right at this time. They have only scratched the surface of what HAARP is capable of.
So, Bill, let me ask you a question. Why are they using HAARP, and what was the reason initially? Not to say when I say that they started building it, but now that they have understood what they're working with, what are they using it for? All 24 stations.
Oh, it's more than 24 stations. It's 244 stations now.
So what is the reason for HAARP? I mean, the primary reason. I know it has multiple facets, and we could link it to all kinds of things like chemtrails, etc. I don't want to go to chemtrails right now. I want to say, why are they changing the weather patterns around the world? What's their major reason that you think?
The first thing was they were trying to make when Reagan came into being, he wanted, what's Star Wars? He started the Star Wars program. And that is when the emphasis was put on HAARP. That's when they was really booted up to high power.
Go on.
I'm trying to read some of these things here. I'm not very good at this. I have to remember, my mind is kind of fading on me because of all the things that have happened to me. I'm not all here.
Yeah, don't look at the chat. Just let's talk on the mic.
Okay. Well, you just ask me, and I'll try to stick with you.
All right. So the major reason that they developed HAARP. Go ahead and tell the history.
To search for minerals and components for mining and oil and so forth. They found out it was capable of blocking and destroying satellites. And they went from there. Reagan submitted recognition for Star Wars, and that's where the whole thing became an emphasis of a weapon. And now that weapon that they were looking for, they found out they could maneuver weather, they could create hurricanes. They could shake the ground. They could initialize earthquakes. It was a multitude of things they were finding out. And it's still in the process of being an experiment.
Okay, so now we have to talk about, you're talking about HAARP being able to go into the ionosphere. Now, what happens when HAARP pushes a hemoglobin up into the ionosphere? What happens to the stratosphere? Doesn't the stratosphere have to, kind of like compensate?
As the ionosphere rises up, the atmosphere comes up underneath it and makes a hole like a donut underneath the ionosphere. It's like a balloon. If you push a balloon or pull a point in a balloon and there's visible air inside, you can see it make a donut on the inside of that balloon. Same thing happens with the ionosphere and the stratosphere.
So some people are talking about, my limited understanding, I call it a hematobin, right? Like a hematobin, like you would have, in your chest if someone stabbed you, right? A hematobin, a bubble that would build in that area.
Like a bruise.
So then, let's talk about how that turns into reverberation. Does that, because that happens, then we're looking at something that comes back on the Earth, doesn't it? I mean, isn't there a reverberation that happens because of that?
Yes. There's a plasmatic effect as HAARP, the high power of HAARP, hits the ionosphere. It has a plasmatic effect. And in doing that so, it becomes like an amplifier. You're looking at a huge electronic amplifier in the ionosphere. It not only reflects the HAARP signals, but it amplifies it. It becomes like a large vacuum tube, electron vacuum tube, and it acts as an amplifier. So not only does it reflect the signal, it amplifies the main signal. Along the way, they can introduce other frequencies on that same HAARP frequency. And when that HAARP frequency reaches the ground, should those other frequencies be in tune and in phase where it hits the ground or whatever object they're trying to hit, if it's a resonant area, it creates a new energy.
Almost kind of mimicking planetary rhythmic pulse. What happens with the moon? The moon, affecting the Earth in kind of a way, right?
Correct. When the moon is at a specific distance from the Earth, it reaches what they call harmonic rhythmic point, and it's able to sustain just like an antenna, like a tuned antenna. When you reach a resonant point of an antenna, it develops energy of that specific frequency that's hitting it. Same thing goes for rhythmic distance.
Okay, so now what we have to talk about is some of these earthquakes. I know this is a rabbit hole, but do you believe that HAARP has been used to I'm not saying create, but to identify certain areas with potential energy that they could actually use those areas and cause seismic activity?
Absolutely. The primary frequency of HAARP is 1.2 hertz. You figure that out to be the resonant length, quarter wavelength, is multiples of 7,282 feet. That is the resonant length, and any multiple of that. But the quarter wavelength is 7,282 feet. You have oil wells that have metal stems in the ground, 7,282 feet. You have railroads that are sectioned off every 7,282 feet. You have all these windmills that are these windmill farms. From front, the very first windmill to the very last windmill is always 7,282 feet on their ground loop. All these are resonant to that primary frequency.
Yes, sir. So that could be the reason why they put that seismic monitor on HAARP, even though HAARP officially has nothing to do with seismic activity.
It's real. It's there. And all the sites of it. You can go to any state in the United States, and there is a HAARP station of one sort or another there.
Because a lot of people on YouTube are saying, soundbite researchers and all this, crap tag, they're saying that HAARP they're looking at one particular, HAARP station, and they're saying, it's all crap tag. I mean, are you saying to me that HAARP is actually, changing our weather patterns and also protecting us in some way?
That is the cure, they thought in the beginning. They thought they could devise a bubble, a plasmatic bubble, to give us protection from, for one thing, from the sun's rays, which is, that's where the chemtrails came into being. Chemtrails work with HAARP, just as well as windmills. These windmill farms, they're a tool that works with HAARP in more than one way. Let me exemplify something. Windmills spinning at a specific frequency. If you notice, they all now, in the beginning, the windmills did not rotate at the same speed. One windmill would rotate at one speed, another one at another speed. As those windmills now spin in sync with each other, not only do they spin at a certain rate, but as they move through the air, the fiberglass rays make up a static charge above that area. That area is going to be at a resonant length of 7,282 feet. That cloud that's being resonated above is going to be a tuned antenna at that length of static electricity. You fire a radar signal through that area of that cloud, and guess what you have?
Go ahead and say it. But then let's move off of chemtrails, because we'll talk about that here in a few minutes.
Well, what you have there is a resonant antenna. A resonant antenna. And so, same goes with oil wells. Everybody's making all this noise about fracking. It isn't just fracking. It is the oil well stem, the pipe that goes down. Every oil well that goes in has an isolator at 7,282 feet below the ground. A resonant antenna. That's resonant. R-E-S-A-N-T. Resonant.
For sure. So this fracking stuff, is that just the government PSYOP thing? This whole fracking crap?
No, it was done. Fracking itself is not the problem. It's all these oil wells. It isn't just the fracking. Fracking is where they're trying to get the last little bit out of wells that have more or less died. There's hardly anything left in them. They put acid and minerals down there to break up what's left in this shell rock and try to raise that to the surface. Those are what they call dead wells. That's what fracking's about. All the wells have pipe down, metal pipe, that are tuned to the resonant frequency of HAARP.